Herald of a New Era by Dr. Robert Fuchsberger. We are on the threshold of a new era. Old values have lost their significance, and new ones are gradually becoming visible in the foggy atmosphere of these apocalyptic or catastrophic times. As we witness these tremendous material, mental, and spiritual changes and a concomitant suffering that all mankind is going through, it is useful to pause and consider what spiritual treasures we have inherited from the past and what new revelations we may expect in the future. The most obvious of the spiritual currents from the past is religion, which, in some form or another, is as old as mankind. In the range of religions, from the most primitive forms to the most sublime, we can find the veneration of natural forces, the worship of gods and goddesses, the worship of one God. We also find in almost all of these situations the hidden idea of one Godhead, the one without a second. Here, religion meets and melts into philosophy. Philosophy was originally closely connected with religion. Only after many centuries did it separate itself from religion and go its own way. The history of philosophy shows a shift from the heights of Upanishadic lore, Neoplatonic thought, to an emphasis on the power of the human intellect to solve the puzzles of the universe. From the time of Kant, reason has reigned supreme in the kingdom of philosophy. The youngest spiritual discipline, psychology, was popularized in the last century by the work of Freud and Jung on the unconscious part of the human psyche. Jung, tracing the psyche to its archetypal roots, appropriately compares human consciousness to a small isle in the vast ocean of the unconscious. When we look to these disciplines for the help they offer to modern man, we find a gloomy picture indeed. Religion is on the decline throughout the world. Modern man, seeking scientific proofs, has lost his faith in divine forces and religion, in which the mystical is dwindling or has already dried up and changed into mere profession of faith, moral teachings, and idolatry. Philosophy has even less to offer. In its modern form, as a science, it either interprets the universe with an acrobatic play of concepts or declares openly that science cannot explain the basic questions of being. This was the dark spiritual atmosphere of the 20th century into which Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi, the sage of Arunachala, came to fulfill his mission on our globe. His message, partly conveyed to mankind through a few booklets, partly through cryptic, profound answers to questions from visitors, soon reached every corner of the world. But the most important part of his message was conveyed through silence, through transmission of spiritual strength. And it is this thunderous silence which still has the greatest influence on the whole world. During the bodily presence of Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi, crowds of people daily visited Thiruvannamalai to have his darshan. Some of these visitors were attracted by his extraordinary personality, which was obvious to all, but they went away without being deeply influenced by him, although they acknowledged his greatness. Others were more deeply moved and became then and there his disciples and true bhaktas. For them, Maharshi became their haven of refuge, and for the rest of their lives, they submitted their egos to his divinity. A small minority of visitors acknowledged his divinity and at the same time understood his teaching and began to practice self inquiry according to his advice and guidance. Therefore, we see that different people with their ego ridden minds saw Sri Bhagwan in different ways. That is natural because the divine, being always beyond relativity, assumes, like a colorless gem or spatika, many facets according to the faculty of the admirer's eye. Therefore, mortals see Maharshi as a great personality, a rishi, a Jivan Mukta, a Sadguru, a Sthita Prajna, an avatar, and so on. I personally perceive Sri Bhagavan as the harbinger of a new epoch, a messenger of the times yet to come. In this role, I see Sri Bhagavan standing on this threshold of the coming millennium as the prophet of a new spiritual high tide. Standing on this threshold and focusing the wisdom of the Upanishads, he presents to the posterity the age old wisdom in a new form, well suited to the man of the modern times. And what is this message? It is the teaching of the unity of being, the accessibility of this being through one's own self, and the practical path to its realization. Atma Vichara or self inquiry, the search for this self. In a nutshell, this is the whole of the Maharshi's teaching. It seems very simple, and it is really too simple for the speculative intellects of the majority of mankind today. How many individuals are at present capable of understanding a teaching which is neither a religion, nor a philosophy, nor even a psychology, a teaching which needs no belief, no scholarship, and no psychological doctrine? Even today, those who really understand the teaching of Sri Bhagavan, which is far beyond all doctrines, and practice it accordingly, are very few. But certainly, the future will produce a human race which will be capable of understanding and comprehending his message in its totality and fullness, and following the path shown by him. Sri Maharshi's mission certainly did not end with the death of his bodily form, but in reality it only began. He himself said, "You think I am going to die, but I shall be more alive than ever." This promise of his was substantiated at the moment of his Mahasamadhi, Mahanirvana, when a bright star appeared in the sky and crossed the nightly firmament, heralding a new spiritual era.